The room went quiet in that peculiar way it only ever does right before something breaks. Laughter was still hanging in the air, half swallowed, half frozen, when the Marine general's joke landed wrong. It had been tossed casually, confidently, like so many jokes before it. A joke about numbers, about kill counts, about whether someone who looked like her could possibly belong in the same sentence as war. And then she answered, calmly, softly, with a sentence so simple that it silenced an entire room of decorated officers who had spent their lives believing they understood violence. She hadn't planned to speak that day. Captain Mara Vance had come to the Joint Leadership Symposium to listen, to learn, and to disappear back into the margins where she was most comfortable. She wore the same service uniform as everyone else, pressed and proper, medals arranged with regulation precision, but she carried herself differently. Shoulders relaxed, eyes observant, the kind of stillness that came from long hours waiting for something to move in the dark. Most people read that stillness as shyness. The ones who knew better read it as restraint. The symposium was meant to be routine. Generals and colonels swapping stories, lessons learned, carefully curated war memories wrapped in humor to make them easier to digest. Mara sat near the back, taking notes, saying little. She had learned early in her career that silence was often safer than correction, especially in rooms like this. She had also learned that people talked more freely when they believed you were harmless. The Marine general, 3 stars heavy on his shoulders and confidence to match, had been recounting a deployment from years earlier. The story drew laughs, nods, the usual murmurs of approval. Then his gaze drifted, landed on Mara, and lingered just long enough to make her uncomfortable. And of course, he said with a grin, these days they tell me we've got operators who look like they just stepped out of a college classroom. No offense, Captain. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. I suppose next you'll tell me you've got a higher kill count than half my battalion. More laughter, louder this time, comfortable, safe. Mara felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Not anger, not embarrassment, something older, something heavier. She thought of the names she never said out loud. The faces she still saw when she closed her eyes. She considered staying quiet, letting the moment pass as so many others had. But then she thought of the young lieutenant sitting 2 rows ahead, shoulders tense, eyes darting, absorbing every word like scripture. She thought of how many times silence had taught the wrong lesson. So she raised her hand. The general blinked, surprised, then nodded. Go ahead, Captain. Mara stood. The room seemed suddenly too bright, too open. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't smile. She simply spoke. Sir, she said evenly, I stopped counting when it started costing me names instead of numbers. The laughter died instantly. No one moved. No one breathed. The general's grin faltered, then disappeared altogether. Mara met his eyes, not with defiance, but with honesty. She wasn't challenging him. She was answering him. I've been in rooms like this before, she continued, her voice steady. Where we turn war into stories so we can sleep at night. I understand why, but for some of us, it never stays funny. She sat back down. For several seconds, the only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning. Then the general cleared his throat. He tried to speak, failed, tried again. Thank you, Captain, he said finally. The words sounded different now. Smaller, more careful. The symposium ended early that day. Later, in the hallway, officers passed. Mara with expressions she couldn't quite read. Some nodded respectfully, others looked away. A few whispered. She didn't care. She had said what needed to be said. The weight in her chest had eased, just a little. What most of them didn't know, what she had never volunteered, was how she had earned that calm. Mara hadn't started her career trying to prove anything. She had joined young, driven by a sense of duty she couldn't fully explain. Her first deployment had been a blur of heat, dust, and adrenaline. Her second had taken something from her that never quite came back. By the third, she had learned how to move through chaos without letting it move through her. She was not reckless. She was precise. She didn't seek combat. Combat found her. And when it did, she ended it as quickly and cleanly as she could. Not because she loved it, but because hesitation cost lives. Lives with names. Lives with families. Lives she sometimes met before they were gone. The challenges she faced weren't just on the battlefield. They followed her home, crept into debrief rooms, evaluations, jokes told at her expense. She learned to navigate skepticism, to outwork doubt, to let results speak where words failed. And still, There were days when it all felt unbearably heavy. But there were victories too. Quiet ones. A team brought home intact. A mission completed without collateral damage. A young soldier who looked at her and saw not an exception, but an example. Weeks after the symposium, Mara received an unexpected message. The Marine General had requested a private meeting. She considered declining, then thought better of it. When she entered his office, he stood. No jokes this time, no easy smiles. I owe you an apology, he said. Not just for what I said, but for how easily I said it. Mara nodded. Thank you, sir. They spoke for nearly an hour. About leadership, about responsibility, about the cost of forgetting that war is lived by individuals, not statistics. When she left, the general shook her hand with genuine respect. The story of that day spread quietly through the ranks. It wasn't retold as a confrontation, but as a reminder. A reminder that strength doesn't always announce itself. That the most powerful voices are sometimes the calmest. That behind every uniform is a human being carrying invisible weight. Mara returned to her work. She always did, but something had shifted. Not just for her, but for those who had been in that room. A careless joke had been met with a calm truth, and the echo of that truth lingered longer than laughter ever could. Because in the end, it wasn't about a kill count. It never was. It was about remembering why we serve, who we serve beside, and how easily respect can change everything when we choose to listen. And sometimes, all it takes to silence a room, and wake it up, is one honest answer, spoken without anger, and carried by someone who knows exactly what it costs to speak at all.